What's up, guys? It's Mott here, alongside Josh Davis, as we get you ready for Eagles and Bucs on a little lunchtime preview of Monday Night Football. Doubleheader starts with Philadelphia at 7:15 p.m., which, of course, Josh and I will be live on both of our channels for a pregame, a live play-by-play, reaction, and postgame as well. Josh, it's officially game day. The Eagles don't like playing on Sundays so far this year. Another odd non-Sunday game, but looking forward to a battle of undefeated teams tonight.
Yeah, we'll take it. It is interesting because at some point, next week we'll finally get a normal, I guess if you want to call it that, game time. But there's so little this year too that it's like you have primetime games Thursday night, Monday night. It's a little bit crazy, and I know that a lot of the players, including Jalen's, talked about there's a little difficulty, or you have to change a different element because I think most people are creatures of habit, and certainly NFL players are, but hey, they're getting used to it. You're adjusting. I think it's a good way, or a good sense, that we have the mini bye. We've talked about it on multiple shows, but with the
Yeah.
injuries that have stacked up and trying to figure things out on the offensive side and defensive side of the ball for the coordinators, it's not the worst thing to have this mini bye. So I'm excited now. I think a lot of us are, to see, okay, that extra time. Are you able to make adjustments? Are you able to show a little bit better than the first couple games here? Because I think we really want to see that from both sides of the ball.
Let's talk about those injuries here real quick. As of right now, it's about 12:30, 12:35 Eastern time on a Monday afternoon now. Philadelphia's going to have two players out. Boston Scott officially out with the concussion, and Quez Watkins out with that hamstring injury. Everybody else should play, barring some sort of game time weirdness where they would, rule out James Bradberry for the concussion, but looks like everybody's going to be good to go. Is there a specific player who provides the most, I would say, help to Philadelphia tonight? Is it Blankenship? Is it James Bradberry? Is it somebody else?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there's a lot of help from a couple different areas that you mentioned there. Honestly, though, I've got to say James Bradberry because I mean, Josh Job not great, obviously, last week against the Vikings. So I think you get James Bradberry back, especially with this matchup, and like we've talked about. I think you'll see Bradberry in the slot a little bit, not intentionally of, hey, just no matter who's there in the slot, but Mike Evans lines up in the slot, or has this season, I think, like 30% of the time, and Godwin's been there like 60% of the time. So if one of those rotates into the slot, Bradberry's gotten practice at that, as we know, over training camp, and Desai's spoken about that. He is your corner, but depending on matchup, I think that he slides in there. So to me, I think the versatility of having Bradberry also solidifies, so you're not asking Slay to only be the main guy out there
Yeah.
in terms of covering. I think that's probably the biggest benefit. But like you mentioned too, I mean, let's not discredit the fact that the ghost is back. I mean, Reed Blankenship is huge in terms of the safety presence. So with him, Justin Evans in the other coverage section, and Justin Evans has, I mean, maybe a little extra motivation, perhaps. There's a couple players that do, but Justin Evans, being with Tampa, or previously being with Tampa, he kind of talked about being full circle and coming back. So I'm excited. I think there's going to be a lot, but for me, I'd probably have to go to Bradberry. What about you?
I'm very curious to see what Olamide Zaccheaus can do tonight, in similar fashion to what DeAndre Swift did in week 2, right? Zaccheaus has not been used at all. Swift was not used week 1, and then you had an injury in Kenny Gainwell, which elevated Swift. They used him a lot more, and you saw the 178-yard breakout game on Thursday night. Maybe this could be Zaccheaus' game. Quez Watkins out with that hamstring injury. Could you get him a couple of touches? I know we got to get A.J. Brown as targets, which we can talk about. Smith, Dallas Goedert needs to have a big game. But I think they signed Olamide Zaccheaus for a reason there in the slot, and I had a pretty darn good training camp, and then was basically not utilized the first 2 weeks of the season. Here's a chance to see what Zaccheaus can do. But you mentioned Reed Blankenship. Obviously, that's massive. James Bradberry. How does Mario Goodrich fill in the slot when it's not James Bradberry in the slot? A lot of big storylines tonight, not just from the injuries report, but from an overall roster standpoint in Philadelphia. How do you view this Bucs team? I'm having a hard time trying to decide where I'm at. I either view them as a surprise 2-0 team that's actually pretty legit, or kind of a surprise 2-0 team that's going to come back down to earth. In my opinion,
Yeah.
I think their defense is good. I think the Eagle offense has their work cut out for him. Jalen Hurts, historically versus Todd Bowles, has struggled. It was a while ago, but still. But I
hmm
think they could be a little scary tonight, and Philadelphia does not have a lot of room for error to make sure they can have a, maybe not dominant win, but a securing win where they look good enough for us to go, okay, this 3-0 team is starting to get on track.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it's sitting there asking the question, which Baker Mayfield are we going to get? Because I think that's where it starts. It's the Buccaneers team as a whole for sure, but the question mainly is Baker Mayfield going to keep up this level of play, or are we going to see the Baker Mayfield of old, where he's going to
Yeah.
be too much of a gunslinger and he's going to cost you some games? Now, it's worked out so far, obviously, and they're 2-0, but I don't know. I'm leaning towards that this is going to be, or could be, a get right game of sorts. But it's not going to be easy early on. Like I can expect that the crowd is going to be hyped. This team, the Buccaneers, everyone outside the building probably still doubting or questioning. But the
Yeah.
Buccaneers team, from all that I've read and heard and seen the press conferences, I mean, they're totally bought in. Like, this is a rejuvenated squad, a team that everyone counted out saying, oh, good gosh, this is a dumpster fire team. This is not going to be a great season for them. Good luck. And here they are 2-0, very early, yes. But I don't know. I'm still leaning towards, I think this could be a good game for the Eagles. You get right. You have the offensive flow. The coordinator, Brian Johnson, has a better game with the play calling.
Yeah.
He did well, yes, to stay with the running game. So I'll give him some credit to that. I mean, it was working, gashing the Vikings incredibly in that game. But you still need to see some more wrinkles. And I think that we'll see that. I'm hoping we do. You mentioned Zaccheaus, Dallas Goedert. There's guys that need to get involved. And I'm hoping that we see those as well. But it's why you play the game, right? I mean, this is to figure this thing out. But I'm skeptically, I guess maybe skeptically optimistic if we want to classify it in terms of where I'm at. But I think that we can actually get this done, and we might see a little bit more of a Buccaneers team of what we expected previously.
Let's go to a little bit of breaking news. This has been on Twitter for a couple of minutes now. Here's Jordan Schultz, I believe with The Athletic, saying, quote, sources, the Eagles will start all-pro cornerback James Bradberry at nickel tonight
Wow.
versus the Bucs. Expect to see
Whoa.
Bradberry frequently matched up with Tampa Bay's dynamic slot receiver Chris Godwin. Philly lost starting quarterback Vontae Maddox week 3 with a torn pec. And so here it is. I mean, he's starting at nickel. This is not playing outside and then moving into to the nickel. This is Josh Jobe is your number 2 cornerback, and James Bradberry is your full-time, is how I read this, nickel cornerback tonight.
Yeah. But you know what? I'm all for it because, again, he's had, and this is where, Nick Sirianni has been tight-lipped, Desai's been tight-lipped. No one's
Very.
sharing for sure of like, we've got options, we've got some possibilities. Mario Goodrich, we love him, and this is what we get from not only the Eagles, from a lot of other teams as well. But Sirianni loves to just give a lot of praise to everyone, and then we'll figure it out on the back end, right? Like, okay, how legit was that statement? And I think that there's your answer is, even if Mario Goodrich is a potential option, they naturally feel a lot better with James Bradberry. And again, like we've talked about multiple times, I don't think this is a long-term deal. So if anyone wants to blow it out of proportion and say,
Sure.
oh my gosh, James Bradberry for the rest of the season is your nickel corner. No, it's probably not. But again, what you just mentioned there in Schultz report is with Godwin, and like he's going to play in the slot quite a bit, it makes perfect sense to me. It's physical.
Yeah.
That Outside DeBirds had a great segment on the Philly pod this week, and he was talking about, gone are the days, for the most part. There's different discrepancies and things like that, but gone are the days of the typical, hey, every slot receiver is going to be your 5'9"
Right.
super shifty quick guy. A lot of times it's, hey, you line up your tight end there, your bigger guy. We've mentioned Mike Evans a second ago. So to me, this makes perfect sense. A little surprised to get the official announcement of, hey, he's going to be the starter there. But it makes perfect sense that he's going to be sliding in for this game, like the matchups we talked about.
Fun to see this news pop up here during the live show. Reading a bunch of the comments, people mentioning that a little bit earlier. Make sure you guys go ahead and give the show a thumbs up. And make sure everyone's going to be tuning into the live tonight as well. We want to see you guys, even if you're watching the game on YouTube TV or on, whatever TV you have. You can have us, muted during the actual game or muted during commercials, vice versa. It's a bunch of fun. Be sure to go ahead and tune in for that. I saw a comment a little bit earlier mentioning that, listen, the Bucs center grade from Donnie here was a 40 at PFF. I mean, this goes back to the first 2 weeks of the season. This could be a big Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter sort of night. And while Philadelphia's pass rush, it's been good. I mean, we're not going to say the Eagles' pass rush has been bad the first 2 weeks, but you'd like to see them be a little bit more consistent the entire night. Maybe tonight's the night where they get after Baker Mayfield, force some of those turnovers, and Hassan Reddick might have his first sack of the entire year. Can we get some of that as well? It feels like this can be your get-right game. And it's funny to have a get-right game when you're 2-0, right? And they put up a bunch of points against the Vikings this past week. But I think Eagle fans have a very high expectation of both sides of the football coming off of last year's success going to a Super Bowl. And they want to see a 4-quarter version of 2022. Give us the 2023 team, but the 4-quarter version of last year's team. Tonight, maybe it's the night, maybe it's not. But as we saw this past weekend, if you're in the NFC East, just getting a win tonight goes a long way in establishing that early lead with not only the Giants getting blown out, the Commanders getting obliterated, and yes, Dak Prescott throwing a late-game interception and struggling mightily in the red zone in a loss to the Cardinals yesterday.
Yeah. Did anyone see that happening? I mean, come on. Out of all the survival pools that we play in, how many people saw Dallas get, beat and so many people get dropped off? Tons in my league did. So I'm with you though. And it's just point proven. It's almost comical, the fact that Jalen Hurts made his statement this past week on the press conference of, hey, you can play the standard, and you can win, or you cannot play to the standard, you can win, and you're unfulfilled. You can play to the standard and not win, and you're unfulfilled.
Right.
You need to do both to be fulfilled. And it's the comment of like, it winning is the only thing that matters. I mean, we know that, we realize that. Still, to the eye test, you do see something. You're like, yeah, we won, but gosh, there's some weaknesses or there's some holes or whatever. But you know what? Hey, Dallas just found out. I mean, you mess around, you don't show up ready to play, you have some glaring weaknesses. The Cardinals beat you. I mean, who would have thought that? So I'm with you. I do think, and we would love to see a 4 quarters, full game, complete game from the team and from both sides. And you talked about Sean Desai too, the defensive side. We want to see the pass rush. We want to see the pass rush get home because you alluded to it. I mean, there's been pressures. We see the stats of, hey, you know, Jalen Carter there near the top. We got Jordan Davis, who's had some really good plays. Josh Sweat, who's playing really well. There's lots of guys who are creating that pressure, but getting home is key. And so Baker Mayfield being that gunslinger, maybe trying to stay alive too long. Perhaps you get to him a little bit more often. We could hope so. I think you might see that. But I'm also curious, do you think that we'll see maybe a little bit different alignment? Because Sean Desai had kind of mentioned or alluded to in his press conference earlier this week of, you know, teams seeing Hassan Reddick. They realize what he is. They're chipping. They're doing things schematically to try to stop him or limit him. Now it's opened up for other guys, but do you think that we see weird, unique? I don't think you want to get too cute, but do you think that we see a little bit of a different change from that defensive front?
I think you'd like to. You'd like to find something that works. I mean, it did take Nick Bosa, you know, a couple of games this year to get his first sack this past, was it Thursday night against Daniel Jones? And so some of these pass rushers have had a little bit slower starts. Others, like TJ Watt, have had like a bajillion sacks the first 3 games. And so I think moving Reddick around can make some sense. Sure, you wonder why it hasn't happened the first 2 weeks. And I get the argument of, well, you know, a short week on Thursday night, and so you didn't install as much, but you had all off season to install this stuff. Like, why don't we just throw it in there? So whether the thumb is actually making a difference or not, I don't think it is. I think teams are just focusing a little bit more on Reddick. Either way, he does need to produce. I mean, even if you are focused in on Hassan Reddick, he should still have double-digit sacks. He's that good. And the fact that we're 2 games in and he hasn't had one yet, it's not concerning, but it makes you kind of go, okay, how much better can you be if Reddick is the 2022 Reddick where he was terrorizing backfields and ruining games? I mean, he literally ruined the NFC Championship game for the 49ers. Even without the injury, he was wrecking in the backfield. So hopefully a nice Reddick night. Hopefully he plays very well, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do against, again, a mediocre to poor overall offensive line and an offense that's playing good football with Baker Mayfield, but they're not the Dolphins, right? You're not playing some sort of mega offense. If you can figure out a way to slow down Mike Evans, right? Thankfully, slow down Mike Evans, I think you have a shot here as long as Jalen Hurts and the Eagle offense can move this football on what is one of the better defenses right now in the National Football League.
Yes. Yep. And I agree with you there. To make a very quick, brief point, we're going to be going to the Dolphins game. So if anybody's there, that's going to be a blast. I'm so happy that the Dolphins game is later in the season. Let's just be honest.
Too.
You know, I mean, again, for all the litmus tests, we talk about, you know, teams playing up to standard, winning is the only thing that matters. 70-20. I mean, my gosh, I expected it to be a whole lot closer. You know, I thought there would be a chance I didn't really think the Broncos could win, but I did expect it to be closer, you know, try to hopefully make a statement, you know, Peyton getting his win over there. But I mean, that team looks incredibly dangerous. So thankfully we've got some time, like you mentioned there. Thankfully we got some time, get up to speed on that side. But yeah, you know, it'll be interesting too. And what I was trying to pull it up here, see, because I know that Reddick didn't start out with a sack until, was it the third? Yeah, it was the third game. Okay, week 3. So you know, again,
last year,
it's okay. We could say, you know, a little bit of a slow start. Sometimes that happens. I am curious of how much the thumb affects, you know, even if it's just a little bit. I think there's something there somewhat, but he's still generating a couple pressures, but you could see he's getting a lot of attention to that side. So to your point, you know, if it opens up for other guys, great, but he still does need to make some plays. And I think that he could, and, you know, you just kind of get your rhythm there. So, you know, it could turn into last season, just get going. You start piling up the sacks and all of a sudden it happens. But, you know, we need it from all sides and from Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, you know, even the backup guys too. I mean, Brandon Graham, getting the guys coming in. I'm curious if we'll see, you know, Derek Barnett hasn't just been incredible. I mean, he's had a couple plays, you know, I think maybe 2 that I can count from the first 2 games. Nolan Smith, you know, I know people have mentioned in the comments of, hey, where is he? Why are we not seeing him? He's played in special teams, but other than that, he's gotten a handful of snaps and that's it. So there's something, whether it's practice related that they're just seeing, or it's schematically, or it's just, hey, you know what? Maybe he's not caught up to speed. I've seen the undersized argument. I mean, if you're just looking at size wise,
Sure.
he's the same as your Hassan Reddick and everything on that. But it could be if you're strength or explosiveness or just technique. Maybe there's problems there. I don't know. I would be kind of fun or cool to see if you could throw him in there a couple times and if he makes an impact. But overall, you've got other guys that they need to be on the field a lot more from what we've seen so far. And you just got to have a little bit more production. But I think that we could see that from Razan.
Adam 1457, $2 super chat here. Should the Eagles go sign Crayvon LeBlanc? I've seen this in my comments a bunch. I'm sure you have too. Sure, if it was 2018, I guess. I mean, has LeBlanc done anything in recent years? I think he tweets a lot about wanting to be an Eagle, and sure, you can bring him in for a workout, but no, I mean, the odds of it happening are very, very slim. Let's throw in Andrew here. He's got 5. He says, hey, guys, the Bears continue losing streak. The trade deadline, how we trade for TJ. He has a favorable contract. I highly doubt that. I highly doubt that the Bears would ship TJ Edwards, who the Eagles didn't want to sign this offseason, back to Philadelphia. I like the thought about the Bears, being sellers, and I don't know if they have to be sellers to have a bad record because that team is just so awful, but I'd be surprised. Let's just say that. And listen, we're getting closer and closer to Nakobe Dean coming back. It's a couple of weeks after he gets back from the short-term IR, and hopefully your linebacker issues, which are, they've been issues, but not mega issues. The team's 2-0, not losing because of it, but hopefully that'll fix up the issues. That'd be nice to go ahead and see. Quickly here, people want weather updates. We got them for you right here. There is a chance of rain tonight, but it's also Florida. There's always a chance of rain, so it looks like you're looking at kind of a 75, mostly cloudy, maybe scattered thunderstorms, but it's about 50% chance. Low rain or low wind, though, so I would say not a guarantee it's going to rain, but it's potentially on the docket there for a weather update in Tampa Bay tonight as Philadelphia would like some nice weather. They had some nice weather for week 2, but would like some nice weather here in week 3 and maybe get this passing attack going. Do you have any fear about A.J. Brown not getting touches tonight? Are you pretty confident that A.J. Brown is going to get, every touch possible that he possibly can have?
Yeah. There's no fear. I mean, I think I saw you posted on your, which is a good bet, by the way. So if anybody wants to get in on the bets, DraftKings, we got the promo links in both videos in the description. But your pick for first touchdown score, AJ Brown plus 800. I mean,
plus 800.
That's not bad odds. That's not too bad there. Now, granted, if the Bucs score, they could ruin it all for everyone. But
sure,
for the Eagles score. Yeah, and I know what AJ said. He spoke out about the frustration on the sidelines in his comments and said, hey, it wasn't about targets. It was about something else. Even though I did get the ball thrown to me 3 straight plays after that, I don't know. You make what you will. It could have been about targets. It could have been kind of about target. I don't know. Anytime you see a receiver whining or questioning, it just always comes up. You wonder. But I do think that this will be a game where it's like, you know what? Hey, let's get him the ball, because when he's happy, everything's a little bit better. You don't want the frustration. I don't think they're blowing it out of proportions, and I'm not saying it's a major deal, but it's just natural to say, okay, you know what? We tried to get him the ball. There were a couple times. I mean, he should have had that pass interference call.
Yes.
That was going to be a score. The other time with the hold on Rashad Penny, I mean, you could argue that it wasn't a hold. So there were chances, but yes, I think that it's going to be concerted effort. Get it to AJ. I mean, unless they're just absolutely taking him out of the game, but I think he's going to have a really good game for sure.
Curtis Sharp says it's going to be a Brown and Goddard game tonight. Hey, as long as they win, doesn't matter who it is, but it'd be nice to get A.J. Brown his tonight. That way, he could be a little bit more happy on the sideline and celebrate with his buddies and get that first touchdown of the year. I mean, come on, he's one of the top receivers in the league. He wants to get his stats. He wants to be a 1,000-yard receiver. He wants to get above 7 or 8 touchdowns, and, listen, rightfully so, I would argue, at least from that standpoint. Gainwell tonight is another thing I'm keeping an eye on here. How many touches do you give Kenny G? I sat him in my fantasy football league because you would think conventional wisdom says Swift has taken over the job, at least until he proves that he can't handle it. So feed Swift early and often, and then mix in Gainwell with passing situations or third down situations. But they love Kenny Gainwell, and they love giving him touches. You think they're going to give him more than we would expect as Eagle fans?
Oh gosh, I'm hopeful no, but there's a lot of me that's thinking that, they're going to resort back to it and say, yeah, it's Kenny G, he's back, so, let's make sure that he stays healthy or stays happy and getting his touches. Speaking of that, I hope that it's, and Sirianni said in his presser, again, we're going to ride the hot hand if he stays that way. But even to that sense, I mean, he kind of left it with almost a caveat to say, yeah, but what hot hand are we talking about? We're going to ride the hot hand, but does that mean that it's DeAndre Swift keeping it up since he had the monster game, against the Vikings? Or is it, we're going to go into Monday night and who knows? I'll be so upset if Kenny Gainwell gets the first carry. I'm sorry. I'm gonna be
You
so
and everybody
upset. It's like,
else.
oh,
Come
hey,
on.
back to Kenny Gainwell. Great. Hopefully, it's at least to your point. Like if DeAndre Swift can keep it up, hopefully he
Right.
starts. You have the first couple carries, and if he takes it from there, please don't change anything. Please don't get cute. Don't say, hey, we need to make sure Kenny G's happy there. No. DeAndre Swift is your RB1. He should be your RB1 as many touches as he can, unless he's injured. I think that's what we're going to see. But still, from past history and past experience and how much they love Kenny G, and I do too, to a certain extent, I don't know. There's a small part of me that goes, it wouldn't be too shocking if all of a sudden we're like, well, wow, there's Kenny Gainwell out there. What are we doing?
Tony Cadillac says, "Good morning from Hawaii. Can't wait for tonight's game. 3-0. Let's go Birds. Let's go." 3-0 is very important right now. I mean, if you look at the NFL standings, after what happened yesterday, where a bunch of teams went ahead and lost, you pull it up on your screen right now, there's opportunities here for Philadelphia to really get a lead in at least the NFC. Now, obviously, looking at the AFC right now, Miami, your only 3-0 football team. That obviously is, to me, the best football team in the National Football League right now. I mean, they're absolutely incredible. But come down
Yeah.
here to the NFC. There's a couple of teams left, right? San Francisco, they're already 3-0. Us and Tampa. If you get a win tonight and you go to 3-0, you at least get a game ahead of some of these teams that are not in your division and a half game ahead of everybody else. And what we saw, at least this past weekend, everybody else in the NFC minus San Francisco has flaws, and they have, I mean, maybe some serious ones, right? Green Bay, they were able to pull out the win, but it took them till the very, very end to even get going in the fourth quarter there. Jordan Love doesn't seem like a championship caliber quarterback right now. Atlanta has no passing game at all. Seattle is fun, but how fun can Geno Smith actually be? Detroit, we saw their letdown after Kansas City. And Dallas, Dallas will go as far as Dak Prescott takes them. And Dak Prescott proved last night that, hey, if you got to put, or yesterday afternoon, if you got to put the ball in my hands late in this game, you can't trust me. Now, he can win a lot of games, and he'll win plenty of those games. But to lose to the Cardinals, it's a rough look. It's not a good look overall. And so we got to keep an eye on what Dallas is going to do. But if Philly loses tonight, you're right back there tied with Dallas. And, you know, you got to go play a tough Washington Commander football team who did get blown out, but will be motivated this coming week. So let's keep an eye on this as we talk about importance with going 3-0. It's always great to get wins, but it feels like tonight is a very pivotal win to keep the early schedule with a lot of W's for when you play some of those harder teams like Kansas City and, you know, the Dolphins in a couple of weeks, and obviously the Bills as well a little bit later.
Yeah, without question. There, it is it's not a must win because again we're 2-0, but it is a very important game, and we should win. Like this is a game we should win. I know that it's going to be. There's a chance that the Bucs could win. That it's Monday Night Football. It's at their home. They have the Rondé Barber celebration. Like they're doing everything. They're pulling out all the stops to try to get as motivated, amped up about this game and get this win and stay undefeated. But this is a game that we should win. If this is where you're trying to get your season to go to, and like you mentioned with the schedule there, we know it gets tougher. We know it gets a lot more difficult with the teams on the slate and the gauntlet through the middle of the season. So if you can win this game, we do have the Commanders, and they're going to be motivated. But I love the idea or the fact that Sam Howell's been sacked 15 times or something like that through the first three. It's the most in the league. So that doesn't really add up well when you talk about our pass rush. Now, again, it's a division game, and those seem to always be close, or a lot of times close, especially with the Commanders. So we'll see. But this is the stretch where you need to start out with these wins because we know it's going to get more difficult, and it's going to be impossible. I'm just going to say it's going to be impossible to go undefeated through that stretch. We're going to lose one or two, hopefully no more than that, but we're going to lose a couple of those most likely. They're very difficult stretches. So these are important. I think you got to get it done. And, I mean, again, it goes back to, I think a lot of it, as Sean Sarcasm saying here, the coordinators for us is very concerning. So the question is, how much do you expect to see from the coordinator? How much trust do you have coming off? I know it's a complete hypothetical, so maybe an unfair question, but we're coming off of a mini bye, and they've said they've gotten a lot of extra time to think about it. Where is the confidence level coming into this game for the coordinators?
I mean, I think it should be high just based off of what you just said in the mini bye, right? I mean, Philadelphia has a lot of faith in these two coordinators. The coaching staff loves Brian Johnson. The players love Brian Johnson. And apparently everything we heard about Sean Desai is good stuff. I mean, the problem we've seen is the consistency. Some of the play calls early. Some of the, design quarterback runs that don't make a lot of sense. Or defensively, the middle of the football field. We talked about that last Wednesday during our live show. Can get exposed a little bit. Eagle fans are worried because they've had instances in the past where coordinators on good football teams have let them down. And Jonathan Gannon is the most recent example of that. And they don't want to repeat. And so Philadelphia can come out tonight having 10 days of prep work, playing against a football team that's not the greatest in the National Football League. We all both respect the Bucs, but let's be honest here. They should be able to establish their dominance with the roster that we think that they have. Now, it's still early. The Eagles roster we think is great. Maybe it's mediocre. Maybe it's slightly above average. Maybe it's not as good as we thought that it would be. But right now, we all still think, based on what we've seen, that it's really, really good. Let's see that really, really good roster perform for 4 straight quarters in both play calling, execution, and getting the football to your top targets. That's what I want to see tonight. I think Eagle fans would agree.
For sure. Yep. We need to see that. We want to see that. We're expecting a little bit of extra time to game plan and prep for it and get a little bit more, I don't know, creative, or don't have the vanilla basic offense,
Yeah.
because mostly, not all, but mostly what we've seen from the first couple games has been a more basic play calling style, and having the kind of typical routes that you run, the standard there. So yes, I'm with you. Hopefully you see a little bit more creativity, and also with Goddard. I mean, that's another area of the offense, that he had some catches last week. Thankfully, it wasn't a goose egg in terms of fantasy performance.
Right.
But for those of us that have Goddard on our fantasy team, I think we're all waiting. Like, we knew, or most people I think realize, there's only so much to go around for this offense. So there's going to be weeks where different weapons are going to have a little bit of an off week. But in terms of, hey, Goddard should be up there in the upper echelon of tight ends, but he hasn't performed so well. So fantasy wise too, I'm hoping you get Goddard going a little bit as well. And it wouldn't surprise me if, hey, the Bucs are looking at it going, hey, Goddard hasn't done as well. And schematically, I mean, Devontae's been phenomenal. I mean, he's been incredible the first couple weeks. So they try to take away the receivers maybe a little bit more. Perhaps that opens up a hole for Goddard to do well. I don't know. I would love to see it just to add that different dynamic and wrinkle. But either way, yes, from the mini bye, having the extra time, if we come away from this one, and we've talked about it in the past weeks, you can give them a little bit of pass for the rust or the shortened week or whatever. There's no excuses. You come away from this, and if there's any weaknesses or any concerns from it, then you're sitting there going, okay, this is problematic, because there's no more excuses you could say for the coordinator. So hopefully we see a little bit better from what we saw from the first couple weeks.
All right, let's wrap up here with some score predictions. Seeing some people pour those in there. Blaze says 38-14. J. Ross says 29-24. Kyler Saunders says 35-12. Got a couple more coming in. 24-21 says Leo. What's your score prediction for tonight? What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go with 24-20. I think that
okay.
it's going to be, I think it's going to be under the total. The total's 45. So, for anyone who's curious on that. But I think it's going to be lower. Both these teams, as we know, are very good run defense. I mean, it's 1-2 in the NFL through the first 2 weeks. So I think that it's going to be, hey, you're going to have to resort to the passing game. But with it may be a little bit more one-dimensional. I think that the Eagles, among the Bucs, the Eagles here, I think the Eagles have a better opportunity with the O-line and everything to still have a good rushing attack. But I still think you might have to get a little bit more one-dimensional. And I don't know. I feel like if there's a chance of maybe some turnovers, or just I'm hopeful that I'm a little bit wrong in this. Honestly, it'd be great if we have a little bit more high scoring, because we go, hey, the offense is doing great here. But to me, I'm feeling like it could be just a little bit of a slugfest and kind of slowing down at times. But I think the Eagles win. I'm going to go 24-20.
I think it'd be a little bit higher scoring, but I also like it being close. I think 27-21 makes some sense here with Philadelphia getting a late pick of Baker Mayfield to seal the game. They need to prove that they can play 4 quarters before I start giving them blowout predictions again. Remember last year, you got halfway through the season, you're like, okay, what, 31-10, right? It's going to be ridiculous. Let's prove that the defense can slow down Mike Evans, who's having a fantastic season in a contract year. Let's prove that they can run the football, like you said, on the number 2 rushing defense in the National Football League. That's what I want to see. And so I say 27-21. I think A.J. Brown gets his touchdown. I think that Philadelphia works DeAndre Swift a little bit more than we probably are expecting, because Gainwell's back, and they get right. But it's going to be a little bit tough because this defense is good with Todd Bowles. And so if they get to 27, then I think we'll be feeling pretty good. So, all right, 31-10 says Superior. Trev says 27-17. Willie Beamer says 31-17. And Sean says 24-20. Stall on offense, second half, and play to stop the game. All right, there you go. Well, guys, we appreciate
it. We got Mason McRae with a 52-17, so I'm all for that. Let's hope it's a 52-17.
Let's
make a statement for the Dolphins.
Right?
Yeah.
Just goodness gracious. All right, we'll be back live tonight, getting ready for the pregame, probably around 6:30, 6:45 p.m. Look out for that. Be sure to come hang out. We encourage you guys. It's the best play-by-play live hangout you can do for a watch party of Philadelphia on the platform. So be sure to subscribe. Stay tuned for that. We'll see you guys tonight. For Josh Davis, I'm Thomas Mott. We'll see you getting ready for Eagles and Bucs in just a couple of hours. Go Birds.
We'll see you. Go Birds.